Okay, so today we're up to lesson 6. This is about linear measure. So linear measure, I'm just talking about how long something is. Okay, so if we want to measure how long something is, there's ways to do that. There's tools to do that. There's systems of measurement that do that. Can anybody tell me anything you know about measuring how long something is, what you would use to do such a thing?
Maybe like a ruler.
Maybe a ruler. Okay, so if you had something like a pencil, maybe you use a ruler. That would be an appropriate tool. Tape measure. What might you use a tape measure for?
Oh, for like something really big.
Something really big. If you've ever been to like a track meet and you've seen somebody like throw a javelin really, really far, they'll get out this really, really long tape measure and measure that off. What's another? Anybody else ever have a tape measure used on them?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are they, like for what?
My dad would use it to check my height.
Okay, we could measure how tall you are with the tape measure. There's another time, and you guys are young, so maybe you've never been through this experience, but there's a thing that you do that a person would use a tape measure on you, probably like about 10 different directions.
This is just a guess, but plastic surgery?
They might. That might be true. Sometimes if you're going to get like a really fancy dress, a really fancy suit, rent a tuxedo for your wedding, they're going to like make it fit you exactly. Like they're going to measure your arm, they're going to measure the outside of your leg, they're going to measure a thing called your inseam, they're going to measure around your waist, they're going to measure around your chest. They're going to like, a tailor is going to tailor a garment to fit you perfectly. That might be a tape measure, but you might be too young to have ever been like, sometimes you might have been, I don't know if you're in weddings or you have older siblings or whatever, you know, you're in the wedding, they were going to want to measure you up maybe to get you your garment. But those are good answers. Another thing we could use to measure stuff. How about a system of measurement to measure things? Can anybody give me an example of a system of measurement?
Like kilometers?
Yeah. Okay, so kilometers is in this family. Can anybody think of something that's measured in kilometers?
You could, like, we usually measure, like, we measured the Earth in kilometers.
Yeah, you can measure the Earth in kilometers. Sometimes people run races. If you've ever heard of a 5K race or 10K race, K stands for kilometer. That's the thing people measure with. Another system of measurement that can give us how long something is.
Inches?
Inches. Okay, so if I were going to measure my pencil with a ruler, you know, inches is probably the way that we would go there. I threw inches in this club. I threw kilometers in this club because there's going to be 2 clubs.
Foot.
Foot is in this club.
Centimeters?
Centimeters is over in this club.
Yards.
Yards is in this club.
Miles?
Miles is in this club.
Millimeters.
Millimeters is in this club.
Isn't there something called centimeters?
We got the centimeters up there already. Yeah, no, there's nothing else that starts like that.
Is one called hectometer?
There is a hectometer. That's in this club.
Decimeter.
There is a decimeter. Don't know anymore.
Acre?
Acres does like 2 directions instead of 1. An acre is measuring like an area, like a land.
Okay.
It's not just this way, it's like this way and that way.
Isn't there a decameter?
There is a decameter, and that's a weird one. It can be either a C or a K in the middle. Different people spell that different ways, and you're both right. But yeah, there is a decameter. You might know more. We might run out eventually. I'll just figure and see what you know. Know any more?
I don't know if this is time or not, but light years?
Yeah, that's actually a distance. It sounds like it's a time because it has years in it, but that is a distance. That's true. Yeah, it's the distance that light would travel in a year. No, that is one, and that actually could go in either club, I believe. It would depend on which. That's too complicated to do right now, but yeah, no, it could go, I believe, in either
Put
group.
it in the middle.
Does anybody know the name of this group?
Metric?
That is the metric system. Pretty much the entire world, almost the entire world, uses the metric system. Does anybody know what this is called? It's called the US, or the customary system. This used to be the system that was used more, but the metric system replaced it because honestly, in terms of math, the metric system is better. The US continues to use this system. For lack of a better explanation, I think I would say it's because we're lazy and we don't want to learn a new system. So if I say to you something is 4 inches long, you have a pretty quick picture that that's probably about that big. You know, if I say something is 4 centimeters long, you might know that, you might not know that. I feel much more confident in saying, you know, this table is probably 6 feet. I wouldn't really feel as confident telling you how long that table is in metric. And you probably wouldn't be as happy about it if I'm like, oh yeah, it's a table, it's 2 meters. You're like, what's that mean? Right? But the rest of the world is living metric. America is starting to put double labels on things at least, but we're still pretty much more of this. So we use this because we're comfortable with it, but here's some reasons why this is kind of dumb. How many inches are in a foot? 12. Why is that? No one knows. How many inches in a yard?
36.
36. Why is that? No one knows. How many feet in a yard?
3.
3. Why is that? No one knows. How many feet in a mile?
Like 2,934.
Disagree. It is in the thousands. Does anybody know? 5,000?
Is it 5,680?
That's close. You missed it by a digit. Does anybody know? It's 5,280 feet in a mile. Yards in a mile, no one probably knows but me.
Is it 1,000? I know it's 1,000 or 2,000.
Yeah, it's 1,000. 1760. Inches in a mile, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. It's like 60,000 something, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure inches in a mile. What did you notice about all those numbers that I just said?
They just make no sense.
Yeah, and they're all, every number was, let me come back to it. If I go play this game, does anybody know how many millimeters are in a centimeter? 10. Centimeters in a decimeter?
100?
10. Decimeters in a meter? 10. Meters in a decameter?
10.
10. Decameter in a hectometer?
10.
10. Hectometers in a kilometer?
10.
All right, so I think we get the point. What was true about all the numbers over here?
They're all different.
They're all different. And they're all based on, nobody knows the story. Over here, everything is 10. 10 of anything will make something else. Here's another reason the metric system is better. There's not just like, let's say, kilometers and centimeters and millimeters and hectometers. These prefixes can also be used on other words. Like there's a kilo, what else?
A kilogram?
There's a kilogram. And therefore there's a
Centigram?
centigram and a milligram. And some of these you hear more often than others, like pills or milligrams. You know, you get on a scale, that's kilograms. The doctor might even weigh you in kilograms. I don't know, sometimes they do metric in doctor's offices. And over here, there's still 10 of everything and everything else. In the US system, if you get on a scale, it might tell you pounds. What's another thing like pounds that's either bigger or smaller? Something too heavy for pounds, what do you measure it in? Tons. How many pounds in a ton?
2,000.
2,000. There's another, that's a whole new number, right? Something smaller than pounds, what do you use?
Grams?
That's back to metric. In the US, there's a smaller thing than pounds. Like if I were gonna measure my chalk, it wouldn't be pounds. If I went to the post office and they weigh something I'm gonna mail, it's not pounds. If I've got like a big package, they would do pounds. But like an envelope like this, if I'm gonna mail it, they're gonna not measure that with pounds.
I know it, I just.
Starts with an
Ounces.
ounces. How many ounces in a pound?
12. Oh, wait.
16?
16. There's another number. That has nothing to do with anything again. The whole American system, none of the numbers have anything to do with anything, and they're all different. If we start doing like times and stuff, you know, it's 24 hours in a day. There's 60 minutes, 60 seconds in a minute. All that's, those are whole other new numbers. But there are a thing called like milliseconds. Like that's a thing. So if you learn the metric system, you can basically measure anything once you learn the prefixes. If you're in the US system, you've got to memorize all these numbers, and some of them you can tell are better than others. And I didn't even get into the whole thing like cups, pints, quarts, gallons. Like you've had those numbers probably before, and you probably forget them. Teaspoons, tablespoons, like all that stuff. Over here we've got liters. Kiloliters, centiliters, milliliters, deciliters, regular liters. Like, you don't have to learn all that, cups, pints, gallons, half gallons, quarts. You know, that's all just unrelated numbers again. So in terms of math, I'm pro-metric, but in terms of an American, yeah, I actually prefer the US just like everybody else, because it's like, it's what we know. Something we're going to work on for the next couple days is trying to learn some of these metric prefixes. And I don't know if you read the letter on that assignment sheet, but it had like a list of all the prefixes on there. I'm going to give you right now a list of the prefixes. So right now, whether your grades are good or whether your grades are bad, your grades are young. Okay, so they have much chance to change in either direction. These quizzes we're going to do the next few days are going to be worth pretty many points. Okay, so what's going to happen tomorrow? I'm going to give you all these prefixes, some of which you already know. We brainstormed a pretty good list over there a minute ago. I'm going to give you a list of the prefixes, and I'm going to ask you to give me the letter and give me the number. And I'm going to give you some tips, and you can, make a note if it'll help you. Listen if that's the way you learn better. I don't know, but I'll give you some tips on how this will work. But I'll give you the prefix, but I will scramble the order, so it'll be all mixed up. But I'll give you the prefix. You give me the other information. A couple days from now, I'll give you the prefix, and you would do the others. Someday I'll give you the numbers. You give me the others. Someday I'll give you nothing, and you'll give me everything. We'll build our way up to that over time. But I'll do it the easiest way first, which is I'll give you the prefix, and you give me the other stuff. So if you're looking at the prefix, what do you notice about the symbols? It's not hard to learn the symbols at all. That's the easiest way to play this game is I give you the prefix, you give me the symbol. Why is that pretty easy money?
They're all like the same thing except for micro.
Same thing meaning what?
Like, they're the same first letter.
Yeah, just use the first letter. So Dessa is D, Centa is C, Milla is M. Just use the first letter. Skip micro for a second. Nano is N. Deca, it isn't a D because Dessa took the D. So if Dessa took the D, Deca can't do the D. Deca can be DA, it can also be DK. So if I went back to what I had, meter would just be M. Decameter, you'd put DA or DK, and then put an M. Dessa, you'd put a D, and then the M. Hecto, meter. Milla, meter. Centa, meter. Kilometer, you pronounce not kilometer, but kilometer. But meters, we do that. If I wanted to do grams, we do Dessa grams, and Milla grams, or Centa liters, or deciliters. You just do the letter and then whatever unit you're doing. But deca has to be DA because deci used the D. So that's a little bit of a tricky one. Hecto uses an H, kilo uses a K, mega uses a big M because milli used a little m. So here's how I keep that straight. Mega just sounds big. Like if you went to Sam's Club and bought the mega box, you kind of picture, I think, a big box. So mega is just like a big amount of stuff. So mega is going to be a big M, milli is going to be the little m. Giga is another big one. It's a big G because it's a big number. Okay, so if you want to try to remember, use big letters for big numbers, use the little letters for most of them. That gets you through most of that. If I created the metric system, I'd have made deca be a big D. But I didn't make the metric system. So sorry, blame the French people who made this up in like the 1800s. They did a DA or a DK, so it is what it is on that. Sorry, can't help you. So micro is a bit of a problem because milli used the little m and mega used the big M. So they had to go with a Greek M. So they went to the Greek alphabet and used a Greek M. I have some 7th graders sometimes try to tell me they're not good at drawing Greek M's. And I kind of try to be patient, but it's not a valid excuse. Just draw a cursive U. You all had enough handwriting classes. You should be able to draw a cursive U. And once you draw a cursive U, guess what? It looks like an M. Okay, a cursive U is a Greek M. So just make sure when you draw your cursive U, you get the little spoke on both sides. But it looks like a Greek M as well. So that's the symbols. Just use the first letter, but the tricky ones are micro, you've got to go Greek, and then mega, giga, go capital. When you do this, be careful. Like, what is that? I don't know. I don't know if that's a big M or a little m. Okay. If you put the spoke on this side, I know that is a little m. If you put corners on that thing, I know that's a
Big M.
big M. But otherwise, I don't know. This is a problematic letter. Because why is C trouble?
Because it's the same
It's the same thing, big or little. So if you're doing, if this is my paper, and all of a sudden I see this, I would interpret that to mean that's a big C, because I made it big, If you keep your C's the same size, it's easier for me to grade that. If you end up by accident drawing a medium-sized C, just write me a note and say, like, this is small, or this is big. Then I know. So if you draw your letters weird, I don't want to cramp your writing style, but I need to know whether you're doing big or little letters. Okay, but they're mostly which type? More of them are big or more of them are little? More of them are little. Question about doing the symbols? Okay. The numbers, the fraction ones tend to end with I's. So a few of our spelling days I've been talking about how the words ended with end. That's been a tip I've given on add-end, subtrahend, means end, dividend. This I'll tell you, the fractions tend to end with I's. So if it ends with I, it's a fraction. So deci is 1/10, deca is 10. D words always tend to be tens. Can anybody think from English of a D word that means 10 in your, maybe not everyday life, but in our lives? A D word that means there's 10 of something. Don't say dozen. Dozen means 12. A D word that means 10. Some of you might have one in your pocket, or your backpack, or your wallet, or your piggy bank.
$1?
So that's 100.
Dime.
A dime. Dimes are 10. So periods of time. If I didn't see you for a pretty long time, what's a period of time that's 10 of something?
Decade.
Decade is 10 years. Okay, so if that helps you memorize D's or tens, dimes, decades, deci, deca, a lot of the D stuff tends to be 10. I don't know if you know any foreign languages. In French, 10 is dix, it's a D word. In Spanish, 10 is something that starts with D, but I don't know Spanish very well. Does anybody know any Spanish counting from your Dora experiences or anything?
Those, that's it.
Yeah, doses too. That's something is 10, that's a D.
I think it's dos, cuetos, trazos, I don't know.
I don't know, it's a D.
I know
Anyway,
it's dos and
tens
cinco.
tens are Ds.
DS.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think that's right. Centa is a hundredth. Centa having to do with 100. There's other C words that mean hundred stuff. Anybody know C words that mean hundreds?
Century.
Century, 100 years. Dollars and
Cents?
cents, 100. Think about your grades. These are per,
100.
per,
Character?
Percentage.
cent out of 100 grades. Percent, cent is out of 100 stuff. Bugs. Bugs and C's and hundreds. You'd step on one if it were in your basement, probably.
Centipede.
Centipedes. So if any of that helps you, centuries, centipedes, per cent, dollars and cents. Cents is hundreds. So just remember that's the fraction 100. Let's skip down to the regular 100. How might you be able to remember hecto H 100? Why was 100 fit into the club with hecto and H?
Because a hundred.
Starts with H. So hecto, 100, H, that goes together. Thousands. So let's look at the 1,000 words. Milla, M stuff is often 1,000 words. So Milla, anybody know any 1,000 words that are like Milla? There's one with time and one with bugs. Millennium is 1,000 years. A millipede has 1,000 legs. So Milla stuff is always 1,000 stuff. Just go with the fraction there because the I words are fractions. Kilo, I don't have a great trick, but it's good for you to know that K means 1,000. That's a fairly common abbreviation. If you ever had somebody say, at my job, I make 40K a year, it's 40,000 a year. If you look at your computer or your phone or your device and it says 40 KB, those are, anybody know?
Kilobytes?
Kilobytes, that's a thing. K is 1,000. K for kilo is 1,000, that's fairly common. Micro, mega, and million I would link together because they all start with M. So micro sounds little, like a microchip or micro SD card or a microscope to look at something little. Micro stuff is little. Mega, we already talked about, is big. A mega anything is a big thing. So those are both millions, mega, micro, million linked with M's. Micro's a little fraction one, mega's the big one. Nano, I've got no real great trick for you. When I add 3 more zeros to a million, what is that about?
A billion.
It is a billion. And so mega and giga, those are having to do with billions. Giga's the big one, that's a billion, regular billion. Nano is the little one, that's 1 billionth. So if I wanted to show you like a gigameter, I couldn't do it. It would be a billion meters. This is a meter, right? I can't show you a million of these, okay? That would be a gigameter. I can't really show you a nanometer either because a million nanometers would fit in this length. A nanometer would be so tiny, tiny, tiny that it would take a million of them to go this far. So those are kind of like, you got to imagine them. You know, a gigameter is like, it would seem like almost forever. Okay, a nanometer would basically seem like nothing was there. That's my tips. If those tips help you, great. The big thing is you're going to need to study that. So your best way to study this would be make a list of these words, but out of order on any scratch piece of paper, and then fill it in, and then check it. And if you do great, stop. If you miss some, walk away, take a break, study the ones you missed, try it again, you know, and you just study that until you master it. But the first day is me giving you the prefix, you give me the letter, so everybody should get at least like 7 easy ones. Just put the first letter lowercase, there's 7 of them. Just be careful of the 2 big letters and the Greek letter. The numbers, you're gonna have to put some time in. Just quiz yourself, you know, make flashcards, or have parents or siblings or somebody quiz you, or I don't know how you learn. That's part of 7th grade, is figuring out like what works for you. Some people can read stuff and just know it. Some people need to hear stuff to know it. You've got to figure that out, okay? Figure out how you learn best, and then put some time in and study those. But tomorrow would be 20 points. Then when I give you the letter, 20 points. When I give you the number, 20 points. When I give you nothing, 30 points. That adds up to be a lot of points, okay? So you want to try to do well on that. If you really study hard tonight, you'll have a real easy week of that, because you'll just know them. You just every day come in like, I got this. But if it takes you a little bit at a time, it takes a little bit at a time, whatever. Question about what's up with the metric quiz? Make sure you write that on your assignment sheet. Study for metric quiz. On the letter itself, you'll see there's a copy of that list. So you've got one, parents have one, everybody has one. The letter I wrote has those things. I don't know if I'll give it to you today. There's 2 extra credit ones. The extra credit ones you can't do until the 4th quiz when it's empty. So if I have time today, I'll tell you the bonus ones. If I don't have time today, I'll get you the bonus ones another time. But I have a couple things here that I want to do. So if you can, turn that camera a little bit to the right to capture this.
Should I like stop recording?
No, you don't have to stop recording. Just you can either turn the whole tripod or just swivel it. Is that good? Am I captured?
Yeah, you are.
We're good?
Good.
Okay. So in the homework from today till forever, and on our math quizzes we take, there's going to be different kinds of rulers they'll draw for you. They're going to have to tell you what it is. So inches ruler is the hardest. I'll save that for last. The millimeters ruler is probably in 2nd place, so I'll do that second. A centimeter ruler is the easiest one, so I'll just do that first. Okay, so a centimeter ruler is just going to make all the marks the same size and the same distance apart. So excuse my drawing, there's reasons why I'm not an art teacher. But if we made these the same distance apart, all the same height, that's what a centimeter ruler looks like. So if I gave you a piece of string that was this long, how many centimeters is it? 1. And now my piece of string is 2. And now it's
3.
3. If you can count, you can do a centimeter ruler. Okay. On some of the homeworks, they might like draw you a string and have you measure it, or they might do things like, this is the answer for A, this is the answer for B. They might put markings like that on there, in which case A's answer we're up to 4 and B's answer we're up to 5. So that's what that's about. The millimeter ruler, they're going to do some things different sizes. So let me go another big, another big. I should have these the same space apart. I should have these be the same height, because those all have the same meaning. Then I should go smaller to split the differences. And then I should go baby, 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 on down the line. Does anybody want to know what number I would have here at the end? It wouldn't be 1. Let's try this then. Where would 1 be?
Oh, on the first one.
1's the first baby. So if 1 is the first baby, what would this one be that I made bigger?
5.
5. Then what would this one be that I made biggest?
10.
10. So what's this final biggest one? 30. Because if we look at the bigs, we're counting 10,
20.
20,
30.
30. If we're looking at the mediums, that's going to be our 5s. This one would be
10.
15, 25. And then if we're looking at the babies, they're all singles. So if you wanted to know what this mark was, I guess you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 27! Hey, it's 27. But that would be kind of a crazy way to count that. What would be a much more efficient way to quickly get 27?
You could see the 30 and then go just back from
See the 30 and go back, 29, 8, 7. That would be fine. What's another way we could quickly get to 27?
We could count 5 and then start counting the times.
Yeah, go to 20 to 25, 6, 7. You know, those are all about equally good. But if you know the bigs are 10s, the mediums are 5s, the babies are 1s, that's the best way to do that. Inches is the hardest one because there's fractions. Okay, so this would be the 2-inch line, this would be the 1-inch line. I would need to draw a mark in there, and this is a fraction mark. Does anybody know what that one would be?
1.5.
Just a half, not 1.5, but just half. This would be half of an inch because it's halfway. What would this one be?
3/4.
It would not.
1.5.
It would be past the 1, so we still use the 1. This would be 1.5. If I go down a size, what would that one be?
1/3.
It's not a third.
1/4.
It is 1/4 because I've split this into 4 chunks. So they're fourths. I've gone 1 chunk out of 4. So that's a 1/4 line. So what's this line? 3/4. Why isn't there a 2/4 labeled? 2/4 is a half. Reducing fractions is a thing we haven't done this year, but we will do. So it's 1/4, it's sort of 2/4, and then 3/4, but 2/4 we've reduced. I would just memorize these, okay? And that's as far as the ruler's gonna go today, but we'll talk about future in a minute. But if I go here, this mark is pretty much like this mark. It's like the first one of a new group. So what would this marking be for?
1 and 1/4.
1 and 1/4. This would be
1 and 3/4.
still 1, but 3/4. If I went a little farther, the next mark I would draw, but I don't have space, would be to put 2 and 1/4. Following 2 and 1/4 would be 2.5, then 2 and 3/4, so we could do that forever. Okay, but the
Oh.
inches are fractions, it only has 2s and 4s on the bottom for now. If I do split again, which I will in the future, maybe a week or 2 away, if I go newer marks, does anybody know what those are? But they don't matter to us yet, but
1/8.
and then those are 8s. If I split the 8s again and go tinier,
16.
those are 16ths, those are common, but for now we'll just worry about 4
And
times.
then smaller, they become 1/32.
They do. You rarely see a ruler that goes to 32s because the marks are so small they get almost impossible to use.
Are we gonna see one today? Or
No,
not today?
I might have one in my cabinet. I could break it out and compare it. But anybody question about linear measure? Okay, so here's where we want to go for tomorrow's Friday. So we'll take the quiz on our metric stuff. I'll give you the prefix. You give me the rest. Worth 20 points. The homework page off of our life here is on 12. No, that's a lie. 14. And I was mistaken at the beginning. I said this was lesson 6. This was actually lesson 7. So I went slightly out of order. I skipped one by mistake. I'll just reverse these. We'll do lesson 6 tomorrow. My bad. I pulled the wrong paper out this morning. So it doesn't matter. We don't need lesson 6 to do lesson 7. We're good. But we'll just do the lesson 7 homework. So page 15 is where the homework is. There's a letter A. We're going to do that. And there's a letter B. We're going to do that. So 15, A and B, and the usual 1 to 25. The only rulers they draw you are A and B, and 24 and 25. So I need to do the A and B just to have you practice this ruler a little bit. So 15, we'll do A, we'll do B, we'll do the 1 to 25. Page 15 is our page. We'll take the metric thing tomorrow, and then I'll get us back on track with lesson 6. Sorry about that, but I don't think it really affected your life any. Question, anything?